Okay, doesn't look like we have anyone left in the waiting room. So good evening and welcome to the 2020 Woolwich Minor Hockey Association annual meeting. My name is Brett Bickerton. I'm the Secretary of Woolwich Minor Hockey, and I'll be your online moderator today. So a few ground rules before we proceed. So as you enter the waiting room, your microphones will be muted. If you can, just keep them muted at all time until I actually give you the floor. This is an interactive session, so please use the raise hand feature. There's going to be a few opportunities to do some Q&A. So if you can use the raise hand feature, that way I'll prompt you to unmute your mic and give you the floor. Third, there are a couple motions based on today's agenda. So we will be using the polling feature in Zoom to capture and share those results. And then lastly, we just ask that all participants be respectful of others and abide by the Woolwich Minor Hockey Code of Conduct. So before we get started, I just need to do a quick quorum check here. So I just need to do a quick look up for our executives. And as I do that, I will hand it over to our president, Barry Keane. Barry, go ahead.
Thanks, Brett. Yeah, I'd like to welcome everybody to our AGM too. We're really quite lucky to be able to do this, I think, via Zoom. And I wanted to thank Brett. I wanted to thank Brett for putting all this together. He's done an amazing job, and yeah, we have him to thank for being able to do this tonight. We'll start the meeting with previous minutes. I need a motion to pass the 2019 minutes.
So Barry, I'm just going to share the actual meeting agenda here just so we can all follow through with you. So just give me 1 sec as I share that with the group. Barry, can you just give me a thumbs up that you can see my screen okay?
Yep.
All right, perfect.
Yep.
So yeah, the first order of business are the previous minutes. So that documentation has been provided to everyone beforehand. It was posted on the website as well. There are some revised minutes. I did get some feedback before the meeting that actually identified some corrections. So there were some financial pages that were reversed, so they have been corrected. So as Barry mentioned, he's putting forward a motion to have those approved. I will second that motion. If anyone has any discussion items at this point or any issues that they'd like to raise, please do so now before we vote. No, I don't see any issues at this time. I'm just going to admit a few stragglers from our waiting room here. All right. So I will be sharing the poll with everyone. So I did mention it before. If anyone does have any questions or does have some corrections specifically on this item, if they can raise their hand, that would be appreciated. Then I'll ask you to unmute your mic. At this point, I don't see any questions. I'm going to put forward the poll, which is launching right now. So I'll give everyone perhaps a minute to vote on this item. Just 20 more seconds. 5 more seconds. Okay, I'm going to be ending the poll here. So sharing the results with everyone. Barry, if you could just give me a thumbs up that you can actually see our results. Good. So it looks like we're in 80% in favor. So that has passed. Barry, you can go ahead and move on to the next item, reports.
Okay, so the executive, we're going to go through our reports now, and once we get to the end, we will open it up. Brett will open it up for questions. Okay, but it'll help the meeting kind of move along. All right, so my report's the first one. What a crazy season! Unlike anything Woolwich minor hockey has ever seen before. Never has a season come to such an abrupt end and not being able to complete playoffs for both rep and local league. I didn't think in a million years something like this could ever happen, but COVID is not the only thing that happened. Here are some positive things that happened this season. The Sunrays did go on their own. They had started with Woolwich minor hockey, or under our umbrella, a number of years ago. And now they were confident enough to go out on their own. We joined with the Woolwich Wild, the girls, in regard to the IP equipment, working cooperatively, sharing the equipment, giving a little bit more flexibility to both associations' ice schedules. Another thing was we also got together with the Township Refereeing Association and Woolwich Wild regarding behavior in the stands, on the benches, and encouraging young people to become referees. This is something we're going to continue to work on. We also had 2 successful tournaments, which you'll hear a little bit about later. The Woolwich Juvenile Weekend and the Woolwich Cup. Another really big kind of step for us, I think, was our local league broke away from Grand River Local League this year to try and interlock with Center Wellington. Generally, I think it went quite well, and had COVID not, interrupted things, we would have continued another season with them, and probably will. And the other thing that we had that went really well was first shift program, and you'll hear a little bit more about that too. As you see, we've had many exciting successes, and even though the season came to a disappointing end, we really did have a good year. Of course, all of our successes could not have happened without the dedication and thousands of hours of work from our executive and volunteers. Without them, there would be no Woolwich minor hockey. I'd like to express my deepest thanks to every one of you for all you do. Okay, that was my report. I'm going to pass it over to Mike Birmingham, Vice President of Rep.
Okay, can you hear me, Brett? We're all good?
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Well, I'd like to start by thanking the membership for allowing me the opportunity to work on the executive, and to all the current executive and many of the previous executive members for their help in my first year transition, specifically Kurt and Tracy and our regional director, Paul, were quite helpful. I've learned a tremendous amount over the year and have a newfound respect for all of those people who have made hockey happen over the years. While it was an abrupt end of the season, our representative programs had a great year, culminating with our Major Midget Junior Sugar Kings being crowned WMHA co-champions, sorry. And for some of those players in the group, it represented their 3rd red hat in the past 3 years, which is pretty incredible success. And there's the possibility they may be able to go for a 4th. I would like to thank all our representative coaches and bench staff for their dedication and efforts over the season. Suspensions were down for the year, with only about 20 suspensions, and 1 player with multiple suspensions and only 1 head coach with a suspension, so that's pretty good. Our first season on the new novice pathway went very smoothly for such a major change, and a big thank you goes out to Kevin Brown and his staff for their part in making that happen. Next season, we usher in the new Adam pathway, which I am confident will transition just as smoothly. At this point in time, we are confident next season we'll have hockey, but what it will look like and when it will start is still a question to be answered. I am confident with the help of the association and governing bodies, we will find a way to make it a success just like the previous seasons. And that's it for me. We can go back to Barry for the local league.
Thanks. Sorry. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, so I took over the local league partway through the season, and this is my report. Local league was also had an exciting season. We chose to leave Grand River for a 2-year trial and join Center Wellington local league. One of the major pros with this arrangement was travel. The short drive to Center Wellington was preferred to the drives from years back going to Embro and Beverly and some of those places in the wonderful weather that we've had in the wintertime. This gave some of the players from local league what they were looking. Another plus was that with this arrangement, we were able to offer select teams. This gave some of the players from local league what they were looking for and something more. A chance to work on their development playing with a more competitive level than local league could offer. As always, success of local league could not have happened without the support of the executive and the hard work from the conveners, coaches, coaching staff, parents, refs, timekeepers. Thank you all for your hard work and dedication. I'm going to pass it over to Zach, Vice President of Coaching.
Thanks, Barry. Brett, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Thanks to the executive for all your hard work this year, and especially all the new faces we had jumping in for the first time and stepping up, as we had number of holes to fill. And for Barry and his first year as a president, and a wild ride that has been, I'm sure. Also, thank you very much to all the coaches, managers, on-ice volunteers we had this year. Obviously, we can't have minor hockey without all the volunteers. Working with the players many hours a week, so that's huge. It was really good to see that we got a number of coaches with their certified status this year, so that was a good job by Burmy there to help that happen. And yeah, we're going to continue to assess how we assist coaches throughout the year. It's something that we get feedback on usually yearly at the AGM, and we want to continue to be better at that and to do it throughout the year and not just at the end of the year. We're also looking to add more non-parent coaches, especially at the midget and bantam ages. So every year during coaching selection, we're trying to find those candidates and seeing who we can plug in and trying to get more guys like that in each year. So that's all I had. I'll pass it over to Christy Allen.
So actually, I think we're going to pass it on to Jeff McGregor if Jeff's on here. Or Barry, are you going to?
Yeah, I don't think Jeff is here, is he? I didn't think he was going to.
Okay, well, why don't you go ahead then?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and read. So this is Jeff as VP of the Initiation Program or Development. We had another successful season with the IP program. I would like to thank my fellow executive members for all the help over the last 3 years. I would also like to thank all the coaches, trainers, and managers for all the hard work over the season, as well as because without you volunteering, there would be no season. Last but not least, I would like to thank Leslie and Amy for helping me run this program. Your help was greatly appreciated. As most of you know, I'm stepping down from my role as VP of Player Development. I am so thankful to have been able to work alongside my fellow executive members. We have had a great time along the way, and I am grateful for all the help and support from all of you. It's been a pleasure working with you, and good luck in the upcoming season. Jeff McGregor.
Okay, so it looks like the next section is just the coach selection committee. Zach already spoke. All of that was announcing was just that the representative coaches were announced on July 15th. Next up, we do have Christy Allen. Christy, are you there?
Yep, I'm
Great.
here. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, you have the floor.
Okay. So I was director of the Player Safety Committee. The start of the season was quite busy as we had Rowan's Law was being implemented. So we worked hard to ensure that all Woolwich players and parents' guardians were communicated with and that they were able to review the information and complete the acknowledgement required as per the new guidelines. This was a collaborative effort, and I thank all those who were involved in this process. WMHA agreed this year to move away from individual concussion baseline testing and focus more on concussion education, awareness, and prevention. We were fortunate to be able to partner with Sheila Bauman and Scott Yancey from Woolwich Physiotherapy, along with Dr. Patrick Bishop, to host 2 information sessions for coaches and trainers and a session for all players born in 2008, along with their parents and guardians. This age group was targeted as Pee Wee seems to be a level where we see more concussions start to happen. So those players born before 2008 would have sat through the similar presentation last year, and anyone who may have missed it or wanted a refresher were invited to attend as well if they wanted to. We had a lot of positive feedback from all those that attended the sessions. We also completed a review of the concussion parent and plan resources that are on the website to ensure that all protocols were updated, added some new information, and removed any outdated information. Thankfully, we had a low number of reported suspected concussions, and there were no issues with any players, parents, coaches, or trainers following the concussion protocol as it is laid out, and everyone put the safety and health of the player first, which is great. So I will pass this over to Kevin now.
Perfect timing. Kevin just joined us. Kevin, you have the floor.
Awesome. Just want to say thank you to all the coaches and managers. We're still getting the equipment back in through this unusual time, but when they have been coming back in, it's been a fairly smooth process. Looking at getting some more goalie gear for the anything under U8 for next year. Some of the stuff we have is getting pretty old and worn, and we're trying to encourage more goalies. So I thought if we can get some more and better equipment, that would be awesome. But other than that, that was it for last year.
Thanks, Kevin. I don't believe that Gail will be joining us. So Barry, maybe you could just go over that section.
Sure. Yeah, Gail was head of the photo committee. The photos were taken by Tina Welts of Dynamic Sports. We had 37 teams participate, including a few select, and lots of positive feedback, which is awesome because we don't always get that. I was head of photos years back, and it wasn't always positive. Okay, I guess we'll move on to the Woolwich Cup.
Yeah, I guess that is my section here, so I will go ahead with that. So Woolwich Cup was a huge success this year, bringing in 34 teams. We had 8 novice, 10 atom, 8 peewee, and 8 bantam. So the tournament was also a major fundraiser for the organization, bringing forward $10,000. A huge thank you to the volunteers, specifically Jeff McDowell, Tracy Hutchison, for their countless hours that they put in to make that tournament happen. Also, a huge thank you to Lori Moser and Barry Keene for all of their activity throughout the weekend as well. Not to mention the executive members and parents that volunteered throughout the weekend. At this time, the status of the tournament's unknown, basically on hold, until a decision is reached by the governing bodies for the future of tournaments. And with that, I will hand it over to Mike Birmingham. Mike, are you there?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I was in charge of the Woolwich Juvenile Weekend. So this was the inaugural run of the Juvenile Weekend, and it went smooth with 5 teams competing, which included a mix of B, A, and AA teams. And Woolwich was fortunate to bring home the gold after some very exciting elimination round hockey. Thank you to Gavin White for all his efforts leading the way. At this time, the status of all tournaments is currently on hold for the upcoming season. Again, once a decision is reached by the governing bodies, the future will be revisited.
Okay, great. Thank you. Looks like we have Gail in the next section here. Gail's not here. I'll just go over 4-on-4. There were 4 novice teams, 6 Atom teams, 8 teams in Pee Wee, 6 teams in Bantam and Midget. There was approximately 340 registrants, and there's still quite a few checks to be claimed. The jerseys for that tournament or that 4-on-4 program were ordered, so they're still at PK Sportswear. Unfortunately, the 4-on-4 program wasn't able to move forward this past year. It looks like we don't have Grady here, so I'll move on to the Constitution Committee, which, look at that, it's me again. So the Constitution Committee, made up of Nadia, Mike Meisner, and myself, met many times throughout the year to find improvements to our Constitution and bylaws. Summary of those changes can be found in one of the appendixes that have been attached. Those changes were approved by the executive at the January meeting. And I just wanted to thank everyone that did volunteer as part of that committee. You'll see this in a motion as we get to new business to vote on that. Next section here, look at that, me again, nomination committee. Huge thank you to all that self-nominated. The slate of nominees was presented to the executive at the July meeting. After a few cancellations, there are nominees for each position, but unfortunately not enough to warrant a vote. Thus, all are elected by acclamation. And we will touch on that in new business as well. Next up, we have sponsorship committee, and we have Nadia.
Okay, thanks, Brett. So just wanted to take the opportunity to thank all our generous and supportive sponsors. Our program obviously would not run without this additional support. I encourage everyone to see the website for the list of our amazing sponsors. It's fair to say that most of our sponsors are local businesses that show continued support to our hockey program. This year we raised over $19,000 in sponsorship funds. This money helps our members with reduced costs, jersey costs, and equipment. And we look forward to the continued support when our hockey players are back on the ice. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Nadia. And next up, we have Christy with the fundraising committee.
So this year we continued to fundraise through the Elmira Sugar Kings cash calendar, and additionally we held a Spirit Wear fundraiser as well as at Christmas time. So the cash calendars raised $5,530 for the association and $2,765 for the individual teams. The Spirit Wear fundraiser raised an additional $488.26 for the association. So the total amount through the fundraisers that went to the association was $6,018.26. Also, individual teams continue to fundraise through their own fundraisers through Pepperettes. Some held events and other initiatives, with all those profits remaining with the teams.
Thanks, Christy. Next, we have the communications committee with Mike Heckendorn. Mike, are you there?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, this year ran smoothly with little or no concerns from the membership that I was aware of. Our executive to membership communication seems to be doing fine. Our website is our main source of communication. It is very easy to use and extremely helpful when searching for what you're looking for. The executive members' emails are also very easy to find for those who do have any questions or concerns. I would appreciate any feedback from membership of ways to improve on our daily communication within our association. And please feel free to email or call me with any concerns. I'd be happy to help out in any way that I can.
Thanks, Mike. Next up, we have the first shift with Nadia.
Thanks, Brett. So this is my favorite of all time programs. So the 2019-2020 season saw the third year of the Woolwich Minor Hockey being chosen as a host center for the Bauer NHL First Shift program. The program was once again very popular, selling out with over 40 kids with a waiting list. Although the program was cut short, the feedback we received from the parents and players involved was overwhelmingly positive. Once again, the program would not have been possible without the dedication of our off-ice volunteers and on-ice coaches. I'd like to send a special thank you to Carla Kane for assisting in getting the program organized, and to Jordan Moore for his continued dedication and leadership on the ice. Thank you to all those that helped out. Woolwich Minor Hockey has applied to host again for the 2020-21 season, and I'm happy to say that received tonight that we were chosen as a host.
Great, thanks, Nadia. Next up, actually, we'll skip the volunteer committee. It wasn't really an active committee this year. And the initiation program committee was also rolled up into the VP of player development. So moving on, we have goalie development with Josh. I think Josh was perhaps going to be late today. Josh, are you on? No, I'll just go and read this one. This season's goalie development went well with the introduction of the extra ice time for the skating portion. Again, this season, Steve Sumka came down from Orangeville, and Steve has always been an on-ice instructor that gets good feedback from our participants and their parents. So we will wonder how this goalie clinic will look going forward with the limited number of kids allowed on the ice at one time. But we'll get the training figured out. Next up, we have our treasurer, Katie Hackert. Katie, you're on the line?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
Okay, so this year, we actually out with a large profit, which is very nice to see. And there's some reasons why. This is the first year that we've introduced a select program, which brought in an extra $18,605. We brought in an extra $2,755 in rep fees, and Nadia got us an extra $2,000 in sponsorship. 4-on-4, which in this year was from actually 2019, it brought in $5,000 more. Without the concussion testing, it decreased our expenses by $8,350. Our equipment costs have dropped down $6,508, and our ice costs dropped down over $30,000, which is the main reason that we actually made money this year. A lot of that is due to COVID and having to stop. I also think that select didn't cost as much as that we kind of anticipated. When we started the year, we actually, in our retained earnings, started in a large deficit. So this year has brought us back a little bit closer to the black. Overall, we are still in the red, which has never really been noticed as much because 4-on-4 and New Year registration helps with cash flow. This year it has been tough, but we're getting through, and I think this season hopefully will bring some more. Without having tournaments, it could be difficult.
Thanks, Katie. Next up, me. Favorite topic, the website. So the website saw over 200,000 visitors this year, up from last year, even though we did have a shorter season. Obviously, with the abrupt suspension of the season, visitors dropped once we knew that it was going to be a longer break. I expect that we'll slowly be seeing visitors return to the website once details on the next season are available. So we continue to use our website as the hub for the majority of the information for Woolwich Minor Hockey, with a secondary emphasis on social media, so Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So the website is based on a product from MB Sports Web, which is going through a bit of a rebrand right now. So with that rebrand, we do expect to see a new look and feel that will likely come perhaps over the next year. And it sounds like they'll also be adding some additional features to the website, which hopefully we can all enjoy. I will be handing the website administration over to Donna Harrington at the end of this term. And next up, speak of the devil, Donna Harrington, Office Registrar. Donna, you online? There you are. You have the floor.
Hi, everyone. I just want to thank everyone for welcoming me into the Woolwich family. I don't know if you guys know who I am, but I do have about 7 years experience with the girls hockey. So this is my first year with the boys. So I'm very excited to learn everything and see all your faces and get to know everyone. So I did a breakdown of what the players for last year, for how many teams that we had. I also have, you can read it, or we can, if you're interested in that, I can post it somewhere. I also did a breakdown of the registrations for the last few years in case people were interested. This is the fees that we've had for the last few years. So just kind of shows you a summary, and then it shows you how how many people we've had in each age group in the last few years. So like I said, if anyone's interested in that, it'll be in the notes for the annual meeting. So great. If that's
Okay, thanks, Donna. Next up, we have scheduler Lori Moser. Lori, are you online? Not sure if Lori was able to make it.
No, she wasn't able to.
Okay.
She wasn't able to make it, Brett.
Okay. Barry, do you want to go ahead and read this one?
Yep. Yeah, I can.
Great.
So Lori was our scheduler. To the current and past executive members, thank you for your dedication to Woolwich Minor Hockey, to our members, and of course, our players. This was my first season as scheduler for Woolwich Minor Hockey. There was lots to learn. I would like to give a special thank you to the past scheduler, Tracy Williams, for always being there when I had a question and for offering her support. We hosted 2 tournaments as well as had to schedule around the WMHA tournament. This ate up a lot of weekend ice, so teams had a bit of a compressed schedule. The compressed schedule was also due to the fact that the 2019-2020 regular season ended before Christmas. There were rep and local games canceled due to weather. A second set of boards was placed in St. Jacobs, and therefore we were able to shift some of our minor development teams to St. Jacobs. Unfortunately, the season ended early due to COVID-19. The last bit of ice was returned to the township. I would like to thank everyone for their patience during my first year of scheduling. Due to some new work requirements, I am no longer able to complete this role for Woolwich Minor Hockey. Good luck to the new scheduler. Okay.
Thanks, Barry. And I think this is the last one, so it's me as well. Secretary report. So this year saw the executive hold a few more meetings than normal, given the unexpected end of the season. Meeting minutes have been published to the website to provide transparency for the membership. Meetings were also transitioned to be held virtually once the season was suspended due to COVID-19. I will be transitioning the secretary responsibilities to Megan Ruiz once appointed at the first executive meeting. And then last, that's our end of our reports. So at this point, we can open the floor to any questions. So if you do have a question, please use the raise hand feature, and then I will ask you to unmute your microphone. You can go ahead and ask your questions. So if anyone at this point, any questions? If you're not sure where the actual raise hand feature is, it should be under participants, and then you should see yourself there and should be a hand raise. Just one last scan. I don't see any hands at this point. Okay, I think we'll move on. All right. Next we have new business. So first item is executive election. So this is my area. So based on the nominations received and presented to the executive at the July meeting, so the following positions for the new executive do not require a vote. So president, which is Barry, he's in the second year of his term. Immediate past president will remain Rob Moyer. VP of Rep, again, Mike is in the second year of his 2-year term. VP of Local League is Chris Taylor, and that is elected by acclamation. So elected by acclamation would mean that he was the only candidate. So he received that position by default. Next up, we have Vice President of Coaching, which is Nathan Woods, again, elected by acclamation. Vice President of Player Development, Nadia, elected by acclamation. And our appointments, which will happen at the first executive meeting, and we only had one nominee for each one. So Katie as our treasurer and Megan Ruiz as our secretary. And then lastly, the directors, again, all elected by acclamation. The executive is allowed up to 10 directors. At this point, we have 7 that were nominated. So there'd be Kevin, Josh, Mark, Zach, Mike, Aaron, and myself. Any questions from the floor on the election? I think last year was probably the first year that we actually had a true election, and there was really only one position, and it ended up being VP of Rep. Any questions on the executive elections? You can use the raise hand feature. I don't see any questions at this point. All right, we'll move on to the next section, which happens to be the Constitution and bylaws. So as mentioned in my report, the Constitution Review Committee has the job of actually reviewing our core documents. So our core documents are really threefold: the Constitution, bylaws, and the policies and procedures of the organization. At this meeting, we will be voting on the Constitution and bylaws. And that information was shared with the membership through the website. So the draft version of those documents were presented. There are also some links on the website in this document as well that would allow you to see what those changes are. I have done a quick summary of it. So let me just scroll down to this appendix here, and I can just give you an overall summary of what the changes are. All right, so here we go. So in summary, the changes to the Constitution and bylaws. So we're proposing to add a new VP position. So the new VP will be VP of U9 and below, and they'll take responsibility of the initiation program from the current VP of player development. So this will allow the VP of U9 and below to focus on the ever-changing landscape of hockey in the early years. The VP of player development will then broaden to ensure that development is happening at all ages, at all levels, local league select and representative. Second change, officers are no longer allowed to coach teams. The officers, so the officers being the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer, cannot be the head coach of any team. So that would be local league select or representative. The reason for this change was the combination of an officer and head coach kind of presents a bit of a conflict, as officers are really involved in all aspects of the association. Third, the secretary and treasurer roles have been changed from appointments to voted positions, just like all the other ones. And there's the links to the documents that I mentioned, which are also on the website. I did reference the policies and procedures, even though they don't need to be voted by the membership here, just because they do reflect some of the changes in the documents above. So that being said, we need to put this to a motion, and this is a special motion based on our Constitution because it does require a 2/3 majority vote for these changes. So I do put forward or move to approve the Constitution and bylaws as proposed by the Constitution Review Committee. If I could get a seconder for that.
I'll second that, Brett.
Okay, great. Are there any questions, comments, concerns before we actually go to a vote? If you do, please use the hand raise feature. And we have Mr. Birmingham. Please go ahead, ask your question.
I don't have a question. I was just making sure it actually works since nobody was using it.
I figured that's what it was. I was just going to ignore you.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm it wasn't a technical error.
Thanks, appreciate that. Any real questions? Okay, so I will be putting forward a poll. As mentioned, we do need this one to actually be voted 2/3. I will be launching the poll now. I'll leave it open for 1 minute. So 30 more seconds. Looks like we have 83% of people that have voted so far. Oh, 86. A bit more time. Looks like we just need 3 more people to vote. Two more people. Give you a few more seconds here. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll right now. Share the results. So we do have 83% in favor, none against, and just a few that have abstained. With that, so that motion has been passed, and we will move on to the financial review with Barry. Barry, you have the floor.
Thanks, Brett. Are you putting the thing up, or did everybody get a chance to take a look at it?
I'll put it up in a sec as soon as I close this motion here.
Sure.
Let's see.
I don't know if we need to go over every line. I have the profit loss summary for the year. Anyways, it looks like, so our income from 4 and 4 was down a little bit. That I'm assuming it was registration. Our registration was down a little bit from the year before. This is all comparative with the 2018, 2019. We had a boost with the select fees. We made a little bit more with sponsorship revenue, like Katie had mentioned. In here you can see what the Woolwich Cup and the weekend tournament. So our income was 574,897 compared to 598,855. In the expense side, I mean, it's all fairly similar with what we had the year before. There's nothing really outrageous. Concussion testing, there's the difference there. So like Katie said, we didn't have the base training, which was like $8,000 or something like that. We still did have $750. That was for 3 sessions of training. I think there was 2 parent ones with the peewees, I guess that's, and one with the trainers. And it was all just concussion education. Development, ICE was, we had this was the first year that we did the electronic game sheets. So there was a little bit more for that. Shirt expense was a little bit higher this year. We had to get 2 sets of midget jerseys. One we didn't expect to have 4 teams of midgets. So when we originally did bought all the jerseys, I think we only counted on 2 teams. So we had to get a 3rd team, and then it turned out that we had a 4th team also. And that was actually sponsored. That 4th set of jerseys was sponsored by Kramer Woodcraft. Equipment. Yeah, our ice cost was a little bit lower because the year ended early. Going through the next page. I'm not sure if you guys are really that interested in all this stuff, but okay. Tournament fees, tryouts. Anyway, so we ended the season with a positive $43,368.11. And that's about it for that. Brett, I don't know if we should, do you want me to do the budget, proposed budget first, and then we put it out for questions, or?
Well, why don't we just ask questions right now? I'm not sure if there'd be any, but let's just throw it out there. So any questions from the floor? Don't see any at this moment. All right, Barry, you can go ahead.
We're good?
Yep.
Okay, so after the budget, we'll be going through the season overview. In that, there are a lot of changes to this coming up season that we're foreseeing. A lot of stuff is unofficial, so we don't know 100%, what it's going to look like. But this budget is according to how we see it happening. So so part of the things that this budget involves with is this coming season, there won't be any tournaments. And I don't know if we should almost go through that first and then do this budget, but because so much of this budget depends on, or is according to the season overview.
Sure, if you want to go through the season overview, which is likely the reason why most people are attending this meeting. Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because this budget will not really make any sense to most without. Okay, so this is the return hockey framework from WMHA or OHF. This is where some of this information comes from. More of the information comes from a phone call with OMHA. It's not confirmed yet, so or it's not official yet, I guess. But this is what things are looking like. Okay, so in the package that you would have received from Brett, you would have gotten a page that out of the OMHA return to hockey. All right. So from the return of hockey said documents that can be downloaded on from the OHF website, we are currently in stage 3A, and that is the stage in the return to hockey framework. Okay. As you can see, 3A is for development. I've kind of summarized this a little bit. I'm not going to go through and read every little thing there. 3A is for development, no game play, strict social distancing, allowing 25 on ice, no contact, no travel. Starting September 1st, depending on the number of new cases of COVID, we will move to stage 3B. This stage is basically the same, but it allows us to start the registration process based on last year's registration. It allows 30 people on ice. AAA and AA may go to the association that they played for last year, if the association allows it. And the last thing is that we are allowed to start an allocation of player groups. Looking a little farther, again, all this stuff depends on what happens with the numbers with COVID. We would move to 3C, possibly September 15th. That's in a perfect world, I think, is the idea behind that. This stage would add 3-on-3 and 4-on-4 gameplay.
Gameplay is restricted to teams of 10 players, 9 players, 1 goalie, and can only be played in loops of 50, which would be 5 teams, along with allowing 40 people on the ice. So each stage allows a little bit more. Anyways, so we do not have anything official from WMHA. What we do have is information received from a phone conversation. Once we have the official documents from the WMHA, we will be able to confirm the information that I'm about to read. So there is no rep, no tryouts, no evaluations. It will be set up as a house league type structure within our association. House league will be divided into 2 tiers, a rec tier and a recreational tier and a representative tier. Teams are made from last year's registration, and once rostered, they stay together for the season, unless at stage 4, WMHA decide to allow us to re-roster teams for travel. Teams are to be rostered before anyone touches the ice. When the teams are divided, the movement of players will only be to make teams equal. No friend requests will be accepted. Teams are made of 9 players, 1 goalie. Minimum staff suggest 1 certified coach and 1 certified trainer. Being a house league setup, we are thinking that the certification required will be a coach too, but that has to be confirmed yet. Coaches and players have to stay with the teams they are rostered with. We need to always keep in mind that this is to limit exposure by keeping the 50-person loops, 10 players per team. Coaches have to stay within their teams. All teams can only play in their own loop for this season. There will be no contact this season at all. Even if we are in stage 3C when we start, and we're Woolwich Minor Hockey is we're thinking of starting, we're planning on starting September 28th. There has to be a minimum of a 2-week development period before any game play. There are no new NRPs or permission to skates given this season. We're thinking 1 official per game. No at-large lists. This includes coaches filling in for each other, or 1 coach filling in for another coach that is away. That won't be allowed. There also won't be a volunteer roster. Novice and Adam follow the same pathway as last season. Coaching certifications, there is no online refresher for expiring D1s, but they are working on an online C2 for all coaches, so all coaches can get certified. From us, each team will need to provide their own timekeepers and a safety person to make sure players and parents are being safe. This includes keeping and collecting all documents and data to do so. Woolwich Minor Hockey will provide all training for the safety person along with the coaches and the trainers. Yeah, there's going to be quite a bit of things that we're going to have to teach everybody. Lastly, the protocol placed by the township of operations in the different facilities that trumps the OHF and the OMHA, because like right now, I think there's only allowed I think there's only 20 persons allowed on the ice at this moment. We're kind of working with them to try to get them to extend that, because that would only equal the two teams of 10, and to get coaching staff, it's kind of hard to run a practice or run a development without a coach or 2 on the team or on the ice. Also, there's a maximum of 5 non-participants in the St. Jacobs Arena at this time. That pretty much means that parents can't go in, which is one of the, which with an IP program would create a lot of issues. the township realizes that there are some hiccups and are more than willing to work with us to find solutions. Like I said before, yeah, so dressing rooms are not open. Players have to show up dressed and put their skates on in designated areas in the arena. I think that's about it. The one thing that I do ask for people to be patient. We will be constantly updating and adjusting things or as things open up. This is a big change and we need everyone's cooperation.
Thanks, Barry. So at this point, we'll take some questions from the floor on this topic. I'm assuming this is the one topic that will likely have questions.
Brett, maybe before questions, there's a little bit I can probably add to this.
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Just to kind of summarize some of the stuff that maybe fell through the cracks here, we only have a plan from the Township of Woolwich for the Woolwich Township Arena, which is the St. Jacobs Arena. At this point, we don't have a plan with required protocol for the Woolwich Memorial Rec Center. Obviously, with all the user groups, that's a far more complex building. So we're waiting to see what it says. As Barry mentioned, St. Jacobs allows only on the ice 25 arena. So there is some difficulties in accommodating all that with the aid and just with the shared.
Mike, you might have a bit of a loose connection on your headset there.
Oh, sorry, buddy. Can you hear that?
Yeah, it's better. Thank you.
My apologies. So we are looking at, as Barry said, having two kind of divisions. One is a competitive, one is a recreational. Essentially, everything is based on where kids played last year. The kids that we're in rep, assuming they want to, would be split up in the competitive division. So let's, for example, say Adam. You would take your minor Adams from this year, your Adam AEs and your major Adams, and you would divide those into groups of 9 skaters or 8 skaters and a goalie to make teams so that you have, up to 5 teams with 10 players, so that we're in that 50 limit. And then you would do the same thing with the local league kids of the same age. And then that would make the rec league. So that's kind of the overview on how that would work. Obviously, we don't have all the registration numbers, so we have to wait and see just exactly how that pans out, whether we need to move some kids up or add, particularly in midget, we had 4 local league teams last year because of the 3 ages. So we may have to have a third tier in there just to accommodate. Novice, which is smaller and has some different rules between the 7s and 8s, may have fewer teams. But that's kind of the overview just to explain where we are there, Brett.
Okay, great. So as before, we'll take questions from the floor. If you can, use the raise hand feature. If you don't feel comfortable communicating your question, feel free to use the chat. So I do have a couple in the chat right now. So question, is Woolwich planning on having a juvenile team this season?
We would probably just poll the juvenile players and see if we have enough interest. But I'm not, at this time, I'm not real confident we would have enough interest because we would have an in-house league only. I'm not sure players at that age would be interested in playing that style, but we'll certainly ask them.
Okay, thank you. Another question from the chat. Is there the possibility of select kids from last year playing in the competitive tier?
We will start the competitive tier with the kids from prior rep rosters, and then should there be openings, we would probably start to fill those openings based on APs from the prior year roster. And should there be still openings after that, then we would look to the select team.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the floor? Just looking for people that have raised their hand. I don't see anyone. If you'd like, please post your question in the chat. Just give it a few more minutes.
Yeah, Mike, could you address how the possibilities of how the teams would be made?
Sure. So we would likely, not likely, we'll go back to last year's coaches. We'll get last year's coaches to just kind of rank the skaters and the goalies on their team. And then, looking at whether a kid is a major A or a minor A or an AE, and then their ranking on that team, we'll try our best to make a balanced team. It may mean that, you have a top scorer from the major A team and the bottom goalie from the AE team, and then fill in between sort of thing.
Okay, thanks. Another question from the chat. Is there any idea on the registration cost?
Yeah, so that's part of the budget that I have been working on, and of course, with so many unknowns, it's kind of hard to do that. But what I did was I actually put a chart together, figured out we're going to try to give all the players the same amount of in-house ice time, or we're hoping to, as what they had last year. So it will still be a little bit different. I think it worked out to, I don't know, around 69 ice times for the rep or the second tier, and 46 or something like that for local league. And with the smaller or the younger teams, it goes down a little bit from there or whatever. With that, I calculated the cost of ice, the cost of refs, all that kind of stuff. And we did do some adjustments for the new fees, or for the fees. Again, it's not confirmed until we are able to, say, yeah, this is exactly what it is. It's not 100% confirmed. So the budget that I did do, though, was reflective as to those spreadsheets that I did to kind of figure out each tier from each division, and approximately how many kids. I took the number of kids from last year and used that as a model kind of to go by. So yeah, there will be some adjustments for sure. This is it's a special season, or and we have to make sure that costs are covered. So.
Okay, thank you. Next question from the chat. Actually, the chat seems to be working out well. If anyone does have a question, please do post it to the chat. Question from the chat would be, who would be included in the loop that the teams would play against?
So it is only Woolwich players in the loop. It would be the rec would essentially be our previous local league teams divided up. So if you had 2 teams in Bantam local league, divide them up, you would now have 4 teams, and that's your 4-team loop. In rep, you would take, again, the minor A's, the major A's, the AEs, you divide them up, and you would have the potential of 5 teams there, I believe. And that's who they would play. They would be playing only other kids in Woolwich.
Okay, thank you. Another question from the chat. Players who played up an age group, do they stay with that group?
I can speak for rep. I believe there's only one that I'm aware of. And that one would likely stay where they are, and I'm not aware of any others. But I would say this year we would not entertain any new requests.
Yeah, there wasn't anything in local league.
Okay.
And McGregor would be the one to speak for the younger ones. I'm not sure.
Okay. Another question from the chat. Will the representative group have a different fee than the recreational group?
Yes.
Yes, they will. Generally, rep is about twice as many practices and about 1.5 as many games. So yes, they will have a higher fee. Development, whether it be Woolwich Hockey Academy or something else, is still kind of up in the air. until we see what we can do for numbers and how we would fit that within the bubble concept.
Okay. Another question from the chat. I saw some pictures online of kids recently playing in a summer hockey tournament. Are private leagues allowed to play?
So private is private, and I don't know of anything that governs them. I mean, Paul can chime in if he wants, but as far as I'm concerned, private is private.
Okay. Another question from the chat. How will we handle an early bird registration that was paid via credit card before it was cut off?
Can you read that again, Brett?
Sure. How will we handle any early bird registrations that were paid via credit card before it was cut off? So originally we were still capturing registrations
Right.
before it was put on hold. If someone has paid via credit card before that, what's the plan?
Well, they would get a refund if they don't plan on being part of Woolwich hockey this year. I'm not sure what form that'll be. I would assume probably a check, but yeah.
And then we haven't assessed the fees, so we don't know if there is a difference. If someone has already paid, we don't know if there's going to be a difference in what they paid and what the final determined fee will be.
Yeah, and we'll make adjustments from there.
Okay. If anyone does have follow-up questions to perhaps the questions that they've asked, feel free to post them in the chat. I'll ask them as well. So next question, for kids playing major Pee Wee AE and moving to the combined age group in Bantam, will there be spots for all kids to play rep?
The goal is yes, and there is one cohort that is bigger, and we may have to accommodate an additional tier in there to make that work.
Okay. Next question from the chat. Perhaps there could be smaller IP teams to allow for helpers. I see some challenges that could arise without helpers for water or bathroom breaks for this young age group.
I think that stuff has to be worked out. We're not sure exactly how it's all going to work at the arenas and with numbers and such. So yeah, I think we'll have to
I don't disagree with the person's comment that's probably something we'll have to look at. The only thing I'll say is you don't have to worry about washroom breaks because you don't get any. The washrooms are closed. And we may, depending on how things go, we may have to look at a staggered start whereby initially the township is saying that there are certain things we can't do and or can't use. But they may be willing to look at those again 2 or 3 weeks down the road. They're already saying right now that they're looking at addressing the number of 20 on the ice to get it up to 25, because obviously we could end up with 2 teams of 10, and that doesn't even leave enough room for coaches to go on the ice for practice. So talking to the township people, they are looking at opening up a little bit of that stuff by the time we get going in September. And it may be just that the IP has to wait, maybe a couple more weeks till we get to the point where parents can actually go into the change room, or that we actually have washrooms we can use, because obviously it's extremely difficult otherwise for that age.
Okay. Next question from the chat. Have the arenas advised of any time between 15-minute ice sessions to do disinfectant cleaning?
I'm not sure what that means. They do tell you how soon you can come in. They do tell you how fast you have to get out, and they do say what they'll be wiping down in between. Yep. For those that haven't been to St. Jacobs, right now you come in and you either go to the right or the left. They have their 20 chairs there that you can get dressed at. You take your water bottle, you go out onto the ice. You're not currently, I don't think, allowed in the benches. You're allowed to put your water bottle on the top of the ledge, and that's it. You have your time on the ice. You come back off, get in the chair, take your skates off, exit the building. You're not allowed to bring a hockey bag in or anything. They wipe down the chairs, they wipe down the ledge and all that stuff. They did also recently revise the guide that they just handed out. Originally, they weren't going to let us use the bench, but now they are going to let us have up to 4 people on each bench in St. Jacobs, and they have yet to advise for Elmira, so at least that would work for 4 and 4.
So it sounds like there is a bit of protocol when it comes to cleaning, but when it comes to extra time, so if right now it's just 10 minutes for a flood, there's no, like, it hasn't been extended to 15 minutes. Correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. Next question. With smaller teams, we might not have enough goalies, especially in local league, to accommodate 4 teams in a loop. Assume we have to rotate players into goalie and share equipment. Concern with sharing equipment.
Yeah, that is a legitimate
tough one.
concern we're going to have to look at. The number of goalies is always a bit of a challenge. Also, with having smaller teams, the number of coaches is going to be a challenge. So we're still trying to figure out how many people exactly are going to participate, and then we'll have to start breaking them down and see exactly what we have.
Okay, next question from the chat. Why was it decided to separate rep and rec based on last year rather than having a new selection process?
Oh, that one's easy. So the OHF said there is no evaluations allowed, there is no tryouts allowed, and that all evaluations are to be based on last year's rosters.
Okay, thanks. Next question. So no 20-minute gap between 15-minute ice times to clean, that is?
You know what? I think there's going to be enough time from when teams come and go, like in between, for them to clean, just like change rooms, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen the documentation.
So currently at St. Jacobs, there's no time period. So the team goes, both teams are in the arena at the same time, like both sides. And one leaves, they wash the one side of the chairs, but there was just the 10 minutes of the Zamboni, right? There wasn't an extended period of time. So they clean the left when the left group leaves, and then when the right group leaves, they clean the right group. That's how they clean.
And I think you only have so much time to sit there too. You can't be lollygagging around. You have to.
They're supposed to 15 minutes before you can be let into the building. You're supposed to be they're not doing it as restricted as it is right now, but 15 minutes before the building, you're supposed to go in as a group and only to put your skates on and then get on the ice. So 15 minutes before.
Okay, thank you. Next question. I believe I heard Mike say that the arena plan for Elmira hasn't been finalized yet. So is Mike assuming many of the rules in St. Jacobs will apply to Elmira?
I am assuming many of the rules will apply, yes. I'm not 100% sure it will be near as easy. St. Jacobs, for all its drawbacks, actually works out quite well in this scenario. The Woolwich Memorial Rec Center, with public health limiting the number of people allowed in a building, you got to consider that there is 2 ice surfaces, there is a gym, there is a pool, there is a senior center, there is a youth center, and there is a walking track. So I have no idea how the township plans to accommodate it all, or if they plan to accommodate it all. They haven't really said. For clarity, I should let people know that the guide we do have for the arenas just came out on Monday. We just got that.
Yep.
The Tony Code and that Woolwich Hockey Academy stuff actually started before we had the arena guide. So we've just gone through it. So I apologize if we don't have all the answers. But back to your question, I expect it to be similar, but I do consider the rec center to be probably far more complex.
Yeah, to follow up with that, yeah, we did request the guide for the Woolwich Memorial Center. They did let us know that it wasn't available at the time, and we did ask the question, can we assume that it will be similar going forward? But we did not get a response to that. But as they're working through it, I'm guessing we're going to see that guide pretty quickly. Next question from the chat. Will there be a need for kids to wear specific full helmet shields?
No, at this time there is no. That did come up actually in OHF conversations during the summer, but there has been no mandated requirement for, let's call it a special eye-tech type visor or anything like that. Do keep in mind that this is not hockey as we would normally know it. The non-contact does essentially mean that players are actually supposed to stay a stick length away from each other. So that's another thing we have to work out with what our expectations are and have some communication with the officials association and see how we intend to kind of enforce that. Obviously, that's it's hard to put the reins on an 8-year-old that wants to go get the puck. Likewise, major midgets are just used to being up against each other, so that needs to be addressed. But that is the avenue the OHF has taken in order to ensure that people aren't having that direct to contact, and I believe that's why they haven't mandated that face shield.
Okay. So I'll put just one final call out for questions.
While we're waiting, Brett, I'll just add that before Woolwich minor hockey can engage in any activity on the ice, we do have to finish our full return to play plan, which is a written document that deals with the protocol. It has to include all of the township protocols in there. It has to have buy-off by the public health unit. And
Mike, we're losing you again with your cord. I think it must.
I gotta get my own headset. I gotta stop letting the kids use this.
Fortnite, eh?
Yeah, Fortnite. So we need to put together all of that documentation. As I was saying, it gets approved by the public health unit, and we have to send that to our regional director of the WMHA, and they must endorse that. And after it's endorsed, they will issue us a certificate of insurance, which actually allows us to put players on the ice. And so all of that stuff is being put together, and that does address the majority of the safety concerns.
Okay. Another question from the floor. Is there a protocol for any players testing positive for COVID? Does the player just sit out, or is the whole team league affected?
That's still part of our return to play plan that we're working out.
Okay. So I'll just do one last call for any questions. Looks like we don't have any at this time. So I'm just going to scroll back up here to our agenda. I think this was the last item. Sorry, that's a lot of scrolling. Oh, no. So any new business from the floor, anything that the people would want to bring up that's not related to what's been presented today? Again, I'll take it via chat if you're looking to speak.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could address the issue if it's not a rep program, can I sign up my kid for Woolwich minor hockey and then have them on a private team somewhere else?
No. Sorry, I'll let someone else answer that. Barry?
No. Thanks, Brett. No, it's just like any other time or any other, last year or anything. You can only be on one WMHA team.
Sorry, I was basing that on, I forget what other association actually posted that question specifically, where they said, can we do private and this? Right? So.
Okay.
Thanks for the question, Nadia. Any other new business from the floor? Will rep players be required to sign an OMHA card?
Yes.
Oh, looks like Paul would like to.
Yeah, yes. Give Paul the floor.
Paul,
Perfect candidate.
go ahead, Paul. You have the floor.
For this year, being it's so non-traditional, the representative players will not have to sign the offer commitment form.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul.
But we will have, every team will be rostered, correct, Paul?
Yes, yeah, every team will still be rostered. It's just they don't have to do the offer commitment form.
Okay, great. Any other items? Please post them in the chat. Do a quick scan for questions.
I have a question for Paul, quick, actually.
Sure.
Do you have any clarification yet on whether, like coaches, if we have like, let's say a head coach and a trainer on a team, and one of them can't make it, traditionally you would need those two roles filled. And if you can't fill in this year, as a team not able to go on the ice without one of those two roles, also can use the other team's trainer.
So you would be able to use the other team's trainer as long as they're in the same bubble. And it would go the same with you within your bubble of 50. If one coach isn't available, he could go over and cover a bench within that 50 because it's all within the same bubble. But outside of that, I'll have to confirm what we're going to do after that, if it's only two coaches on a bench or if it's three coaches. It's going to be smaller benches would be recommended because volunteers are going to be hard to find. But you could borrow with, say you had a game and a head coach wasn't able to be there, you would then be able to borrow from one of the other three teams that weren't playing at the same time, hopefully.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Okay, so just put out one last call for any new business from the floor on the chat here. Just give it a few seconds. Doesn't look like we have anything. So Barry, we can move on to, I guess, the end.
Okay. Well, then I guess we can adjourn.
Yeah, so we'll adjourn at 8:25. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining us today. We did record this session, so we'll be looking to put it together and eventually post it to the website for those that weren't able to attend today. Barry, any closing comments?
No, you know what? I like to thank you, especially Brett, for putting this all together. This, I think it worked out really, really well. And I appreciate everybody who's attending today. I think did I mention before that I think it's the highest numbers that we've probably ever had at an AGM. Yeah, we're here to answer questions whenever. And yeah, thanks.
Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us today.